Acoustic Guideline, everybody. That was spectacular, beyond measure. I could just sit here and listen to that all day long. Thank you so much for bringing your gift, your beautiful music, and your beautiful spirit here today. That is exactly what we're doing here this morning, folks, is manifesting a renaissance. Couldn't you feel it in the music? I know I could. So thank you so much. I want you to know that we are actually leading the way into a renaissance right now. And so I'm going to ask you, are you living in the kingdom? Or are you living in the outskirts? Just a question. We don't want to operate in conditions. That is just like not liking your hair and combing the mirror. Okay? That's living in the conditions. We don't want to do that. Holmes stated, and I'm paraphrasing, our job when we find ourselves standing in hell is to declare heaven. That's our job, to not live in the conditions. And so the Renaissance, just like Gene Houston spoke of it in our leadership conference in February, it is a breakdown of an Italian word. The Renaissance means it's a rebirth out of an old, outmoding, dying, or impossible situation, just like back when the Renaissance that we know of in history, they came out of the Dark Ages. That was a dark, hard, terrible time. And what was rebirthed out of that time was this beautiful, flourishing explosion of art and music and philosophy and astronomy and intellect. It was incredible what was birthed out of that. And that's a renaissance, is what we do. It's when human spirit grows and becomes equal to the challenges and then becomes able to lift up and enlighten and offer new ways of being and doing. We folks are leading the way in a renaissance right now. So when a time is right for renovation, that which is needed will arise from the soul of the world and from the depths of ourselves. I love how Gene Houston put it. Have you not felt it? Have you not felt it? She says it's like a wake-up call from Central. How many of you are feeling it or have felt it? Have you not felt that wake-up call? So it's a time to prepare for greatness. You know, we're living in good times. We've lived in good times, and now it's time to move into the great times. We want to prepare for greatness. This is how Gene explains a renaissance and where we are right now in this movement that is all about us summoning the sacred. Summoning the sacred within our own being, which is why we come here every Sunday and why we take classes and we do outreach. We're summoning the sacred within ourselves so that we can then birth it and see it and experience it in the external world outside of ourselves. So Gene puts it this way: the world is being re-mythologized right now because the classical Renaissance was a golden time when the internal and the external realities flowered together. The internal world knew that the cosmos for its own, and the external world became psychotized with the spillover of the psyche's abundance into the outer world. And so it primed this creation of vital resident arts and sciences and history and statecraft and philosophy and music and art. And that is exactly what is happening today. So we're going to dive into exactly what does that mean and how do we birth that and flower that and have the internal and the external come together like I know it is happening. We're just going to break that down a little bit this morning. It's perspective. Perspective is we open up and find ourselves in the universe larger than our expectation. We open up and find ourselves within the universe larger than our expectation and more potent and filled with the marvels, more filled with all of our dreams. People coming together in passionate arts and passionate conscious awareness, all working to engage their higher selves, which becomes the key to abundant living consciousness. We are ready for a major jump in consciousness. Social and psychic enzymes, if you can imagine this. Social, imagine everything that you know to be social, and psychic, everything that you know and what that means around, there's lots of different planes, folks. and there's the etheric plane and the psychic plane, and there's the mental waves that we operate in, and whether we're aware of it or not, it's going on. So just imagine the social enzymes and the psychic enzymes combining for a renaissance of spirit. So we are the God seeds ready to emerge as our God selves and enter into this, the single most important time on this earth. Are you feeling it? Do you currently feel it in your life? You feel it coursing through your veins and pumping through your body, and this creativity is just bursting forth. How many are feeling it? I want to see a show of hands. All right, that's awesome. I'm feeling it. Yet I know that there's something to it. You know, where do we go from feeling it and suddenly becoming aware of it and having it ignite within our conscious awareness? Then what do we do? What do we do with that? Where do we go from here? It's all about summoning the sacred, being present to the sacred, not only for our own personal evolution, but get this, it's also to become sacred stewards of this most challenging time in history. It's the greatest time, but it's also the most challenging time. What is there for us to be and do? We've got to summon the sacred, folks. We've got to entertain the sacred and the soul and get alive with it and get conscious of it and get personal with it and feel it and touch it and taste it and smell it and dance with it so that we can then go forth, see? We can then go forth and become stewards during this most challenging time right now. This is what it's all about. So it's got a lot to do with quantum physics. There's a whole new order of perspective opening up and developing. You know, the transcendentalists, Ernest Holmes, they knew all about quantum physics before it was ever proved by scientists. And now that proving is going on. And we read about it and hear about it and we talk about it here. And we go and hear some great lectures by folks that are doing it themselves and have friends that are quantum physicists. And it's super juicy stuff for me. I like to wrap my head and my heart around it because it makes sense. It just makes sense. And so this whole new order of perspective, it's all about as viewed, so appears. So think about your life. Everything that you are viewing is exactly how it's appearing in your life. It may not be the case, it may not be the reality that you're viewing it in, but that is how you are going to experience it. Mark my word, 100% of the time is how you are viewing it. That's how it's going to appear in your life. That reminds me, I am a huge Laura Ingalls Wilder fan. I must have read her series of books 20 times when I was a little girl growing up. I just loved them. And I remember a time in there where she was a little girl and her mom, Carolyn, it was snowing, there was a big blizzard, Charles, the dad, was off somewhere, and she needed to go to the barn and feed the horses and tend to the animals. And so she grabbed a lantern, and Laura was going to help her with the milk pail, and they started out, and it was kind of a blizzard, and there wasn't much light going from her lantern, but she could tell that their cow, Suki, was in the way, and she couldn't get the gate open all the way. And so she smacked Suki on the back, and she's like, Suki, get out of the way. I got to open the gate. And Suki didn't move, so she smacked Suki on the back again. It's like, Suki, get out of the way. And at that time, about that time, a fleck of light burst forth from her lantern, and she saw that it was not Suki. And she said, Laura, go back to the house. So she go back to the house, and when she gets into the house, she grabs Laura and gives her a big old hug, and it was a big old black bear is what that was. So as viewed, so appears. Carolyn thought it was Suki. I mean, she didn't have in her consciousness that it'd be anything else, so here she's smacking this bear on the butt, telling it to move. I just think that's hilarious. So as viewed, so appears. And I could say, I did want to tell you guys, I really missed you guys. You know, Tony and I have been gone for 2 weeks. We had the big sky retreat in Montana, and then we camped for a week in Yellowstone. And it was by far, I got to cross several things off of my bucket list this past 2 weeks, and it was a mystifying, enriching, soul-stirring experience that I look forward to sharing with you throughout the weeks. But I got to thinking about that. We saw many animals, huge long list, but bear is not one of them. And I know Foster got to see a bear twice. He got to see the same bear twice because he went to Big Sky as well. But we did not get to see a bear, so that just reminds me of that. But anyway, here's Carolyn smacking the bear on the butt, and that's how she was seeing it. Things are engendered by the way and the intensity in which we view them. Do you understand where I'm going there? With the intensity in which we view them. So if you're viewing something with great intensity, that is exactly how it's going to show up in your life. And unless you're willing to entertain a new idea or a different perspective, and you just keep putting all that intensity into this one way that you are choosing to view something, that's how it's going to continue to show up in your life. Dr. Sheldon Deal was one of the speakers at the Big Sky Retreat this year, and he spoke of subatomic particles. And there are scientists, in that huge, you guys, what is that called? That they built out in Europe or Germany, the where they can break down atoms and particles. There you go. What? Yeah, that thing. So they're scientists. There's scientists that are breaking down subatomic particles and viewing them in that thing that they just said. What was it again? The accelerator. Okay, see, I'm not being able to hear the accelerator. So there's this subatomic particle that's broken down to this point where it is so fast that the only way scientists know of its existence is by the streak of light that it produces as it is going by. And that's its only proof of its existence. But you know what they found out? And I think this is so cool. That as soon as the scientist turns away from the screen and takes their attention off of the screen, they disappear. The subatomic particle tail of light disappears, and it comes back when the scientists put their attention back on the screen. You see, as viewed, so appears. There's something to that, folks. We're all energy and we're all vibration, and we're so much more than that. So I want you to know that Jean likes to explain it in this way. It's an Akashic field. Have you heard of Akashic records? It's this Akashic field. The whole record of the past and the present and the future is simultaneous, actually. And that's kind of what's going on with this subatomic particle. The Buddhists call it interdependent co-arising. What that means is it's predicated on awakening. Predicated, on the scientists putting their attention on the screen, which then allows that subatomic particle to come into existence, or its tail anyway, because they can't see it, it's moving so fast. It's predicated on awakening, on going off of robot behavior. Now I'm back to summoning that sacred of how we're manifesting this renaissance. We got to go off of robotic behavior, folks. We got to abandon this lackluster passivity that we may be engaging in our life, and engage with a co-creation energy of vigor and attention and focus and radiance. That which we put our attention on and focus with vigor and focus and radiance blooms and blossoms. It's that internal and external that flowers then in our life. So the spiritual and mystical experience is, I believe, the greatest accelerator of evolutionary enhancement. The physical and the mystical experience. Through that is what we use to tap into the wider physical, mental, and emotional systems that then allow us to gain entrance into our next stage of unfolding. Many of you have been through it. I know this, an awakening, the awakening. How many of you have awakened? Show of hands. Are you awake out there? You know, that time when you go through this and you come to this realization and your whole body and soul goes, whoa, yeah. That's what happens. And then you know what happens next? Once you've awakened or have that experience of awakening, then what do you say? Uh-oh. You discover, because you've been allowed to see another layer of your life and yourself, you go, uh-oh, I got a lot of lousy, miserable habits that I got to get rid of now, right? It kind of shines the light on what's going on. Renaissance. Renaissance is the time for release, purification, and a time of restorative justice where you do something beautiful for the divine. That's what you feel when you go through this awakening and it's coursing through your veins. And it can feel so passionate and vibrant, like an explosion that's going to take place, just like this incredibly beautiful music that we got to experience. You know, that's a gift for the divine and through the divine. So then, what happens then in the Renaissance? Then comes illumination. It's this pattern that connects. It's this insight that we get in our psyche. It may last for only 5 seconds, but we get it. We're all connected. There's no separation. We see this pattern and this tapestry, this web, and we realize we're all connected to it. You get this feeling and this sense. It's amazing. Illumination. But by God, you see it. And then that's followed by enormous creativity. It can come through voices and visions, artwork, music. You must express. It's like you can't do anything but express, and if you don't express, you know you're going to explode. Anybody know that feeling? Yeah, baby, you bet. And that brings you into this time of seeing like a child. You know, suddenly you start seeing the world like a little child, and your mind taps into the mind of all being, and you have access to all of the creativity of the universe. And that is followed by rapture and ecstasy and huge celebration. Sign me up, right? You guys ready to sign up for that? We're in it. We're there. We are coming alive right here and right now through this universal pursuit of spiritual realities. The deconstruction of the old, the deconstruction of the worn out structures, and the whole system is transitioning from traditional ways of being and inviting the deep life of which we are a part of to break through us, through summoning the sacred. That's how that is happening. Jean Houston puts it as going mythic. She said, we're going mythic. You're all mything links whether you like it or not. You can't get out of it. So to become proactive, our basic human nature is being challenged to go deeper. That's what this is. We're being challenged to go deeper. Get your consciousness together is what it's all about. Old systems are dissolving. Dr. Raymond Charles Barker says whenever people used to come to him for treatment, he would say, you need a new idea. Society needs a new idea, folks. How is society going to get that new idea? It's going to come through us, right? While we're going through this Renaissance period and this time of illumination and this time of passionate creativity bursting forth from us, we are being that piece and that element and that energetic force and thrust that is allowing society to get a new idea. Are you following me on this? Yeah. And so that means that the old way of behaviors and how we operate needs to fall away, doesn't it? You know, we have more than enough. We know this. They've proved it. We have more than enough on this planet to feed everybody. We have more than enough of sustainable energy. We have more than enough care for the environment. We have more than enough technology. There is no lack taking place except lack in the as viewed, so appeared that's going on. So what happens? You know, where do we go from here? Knowing this is great, and knowing, yes, we've had an awakening, yes, we've woken up, yes, we've gone through this illumination process. What do we do with all this? And why does it look like that society, and sometimes me personally, and maybe you personally, fall back into those old habits and patterns and ways? Why does this happen? Why do we have this tendency to go back? You know, there's war and force and hatred and anger. Why isn't that completely gone? Because we know that this illumination takes place. We know that all of this beauty and abundance is here now. So, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to invite us to flip it. If we embrace what we are, we will be the avatars. We will step into the truth of our divine being and our divine nature. We need a new idea. I need a new idea. You need a new idea. And if now is the time, then why isn't it going on? And Dr. Ken Gordon, was at Big Sky Retreat, and this is how he explained it. And I'm going to pass that on to you. Because there's three things still going on and hanging on, but they are dissolving. And that's anguish, vengeance, and ignorance. And they all follow their purpose. Because for those to exist, that is a part of this illumination, awakening, coming alive period. It's a mosaic. There's a balance going on. And we as human beings, as a species, tends to want to have domination over the planet. We tend to think we're not a part of it. We're dominating it, but we're not a part of it. It's that idea of separation. And then through that experience, we tend to believe it would be better off without us. That kind of separation feeling and separation belief then is what allows us as a species to pollute it and to not take very good care of it and to not really care about what's happening in the future. Do you see how that kind of thinking is a rationale for the behaviors that are going on? Now I'm going to say, if we could be true and authentic to the reality of who and what we are, and what is that? That's what we come here every Sunday to talk about. Then we can create a world that works for everyone. We are the divine urge and the divine speck and the divine energy. We are that. We're the divine expressing. And that's where the anguish comes in. We experience anguish because we forget sometimes. We forget who we are. We forget we have a purpose. We forget that there's a value in each one of our being right here and right now. And through this forgetting, we can become defensive or offensive, can't we? We can think that somebody said something about us, or we can create, that as viewed, so appears experience. We can think somebody's creating issues for us and judging us. We can think something's going on that is not a true reflection of who we are. But what if, when we start experiencing that anguish, we catch ourselves? What if we reminded ourselves of who we really are, of who we come here every Sunday to feel and to experience and be in community about? Then that anguish would dissolve, wouldn't it? Think of it like this, like bees. Bees think that their purpose is to sustain the nest, to protect the queen. That's what they're all about. That's their job, to sustain the nest and protect the queens. We think that the bee's purpose is to provide honey. The universe knows that the bee's purpose is to pollinate, is to go around from flower to flower, pollinating and doing their part in propagating the birthing and the growing and the sustaining of so much more. Do you see the difference? We think our job is to sustain something in our life. The byproduct, the honey, can be fear or war or celebration, whatever that is that we think that we're sustaining. We think our job is to sustain a job. We think our job is to sustain a relationship. We think our job is to sustain something, you see? That isn't our job. That's not our job. The universe knows that our purpose is to pollinate the world with our light, with our lives, with our creativity, with our burst of passionate illumination. That's our job, to remember who we are and then be it. And then when we find ourselves in anguish, get out of it. Quickly, have a new idea. How much of your life do you live in anguish, not knowing who you are? How much of your day do you find yourself entering into a situation where you're in anguish, not remembering who you are? So I invite you to surrender to life. Know that you're always at the perfect place, at the perfect time. That'll help you, that'll help me, help you. I'm speaking through me and through my own experience too. I know I say you, but I mean me too. That's going to help me not to get upset, you see. When I do my prayer work, I know who I am. It makes me a whole lot easier to jump myself out of anguish. When you do your prayer work, when you have that relationship with the divine. So we don't need to learn anything. We just need to forget some things, which is really what's going on. When things become a struggle, go through the process. Find the place within yourself that you can release the false beliefs, the false identities that are causing the struggle. I am not my bank account. I am not my job. I am not this driver on this highway. You see where I'm going there? Release yourself of what it is that you're identifying in the moment so that you can move from anguish into this vibrant, vital thrust of illumination, creativity. Go to the moment where it no longer bothers you what someone thinks or feels or says about you. That's all about anguish. And now we're going to move into vengeance. Now, what's this vengeance all about? You know, we know what's going on. There's wars going on. There's there's things going on that people are responding in a way that we just don't understand. I cannot possibly understand taking someone else's life for any reason. I just can't comprehend that. So what's this vengeance all about? Are you steeped in vengeance? Now, what Dr. Ken said it was all about is we strike out so that we can create a bit of control. You see? If we find ourselves in a situation where we do not feel we have control, we're going to find this element where we can have some control, and that's through striking out. Now, if you think about it in history or even what's going on now, all the wars that have ever been created or are going on, isn't it a little bit about gaining control or feeling like you've got a sense of control, especially in a situation where you really don't have any control? So that's what vengeance is all about, and it's 99% of the time misdirected. Now, Dr. Ken gives an excellent story that I'm gonna condense and paraphrase to show what he means by this vengeance thing. And I've heard it a couple of times, so I'm gonna condense it down, but it has to do with him when he was 16 years old and his sister Colleen was 18 years old, and she asked him to go on this traveling canoeing camping trip with her. Up in Canada, there were these lakes that are all kind of connected. There's strips of land in between them, so they would need to be portaged, and then they would get back in the canoe and canoe the lake, and then portage, and then canoe, and then portage. And he knew as a 16-year-old she was probably just asking him to go so that he could be the carrier of all the stuff, right? But he thought, cool, I get to hang out with my 18-year-old sister, so I'm going. And so they go, and they have a delightful time, and there's this one area on the river, on the lake, that is rapids. And before they go in, they know that you're okay if you stay to the right of the rapids. You can get through there. And you're okay if you stay to the left of the rapids. You can get through there. But you do not want to go down the middle of the rapids. And so they were clear on this. They're good. They put the canoe in. They're off. And, of course, the current takes them, and something happens. You know, Ken was saying he was doing most of the paddling, and Colleen wasn't really paddling, and so they went straight down the middle, which is not what you want to do. And during that entire time that they were traversing these really difficult rapids, going straight down the middle, which is not their plan and not what they wanted to do, she was not paddling. She took the paddle and was hitting him every chance she got. So Ken said, I'd paddle, duck, paddle, duck, because all Colleen was doing was smacking him with the paddle and yelling at him and saying all kinds of things like, you're stupid, you know. Whew. So you can imagine by the time they got through that really hard rapid, Ken was done. He's like, I am done with this craziness. You know, you could have helped us out by paddling, but you hit me the entire time. So there's the perfect explanation story of where Ken was talking about with the vengeance. You see, his sister Colleen had no control. They went down the middle. You got no control when you're in those rapids, and the only thing that she had a slice of control over was hitting her younger brother. There's where the vengeance came in. And he says that vengeance is also two-way street. Her behavior was to lash out and get control in any way that she could. His was to withhold, to walk away, to say, hey, this is crazy, I'm out of here. Even though that made no sense either. I mean, neither one of them, their survival apart was much less than together. He was just ready to walk away from the food and the shelter and all that. That didn't make any sense. But that was his vengeance. So think about it for a moment. Think about times in your life, or even think about what's going on universally now in the different countries, where that vengeance is showing up, so that people or nations or areas or territories can get this feeling like they have a sense of control, especially where they really don't have control. And that's where the vengeance comes in. To withhold, to walk away, to flail out. I can think of a week, in the previous week, what I witnessed or what I experienced. I can see where it comes up. Not necessarily with being hit over the head with a paddle, not necessarily showing up in that big of an example, but think about it. Any time this week where you may have felt anguish, where you forgot who you were, and you may have felt like you needed some control, or somebody in your life was feeling out of control and needed some control, did they lash out? That's where the vengeance is coming from. And then we move into this other third reason that it's going on, and that's ignorance. Ignorance of not knowing. Ignorance of not knowing the truth of who you are that takes you into anguish that then can produce vengeance. The ignorance of not knowing that there is a power in the universe greater than we are. And usually our teaching says, and we can use it. But what if there's a power greater than us in the universe that can use us? Do you see the difference in the feeling there? It's that full and complete surrender to the renaissance, to the illumination that's taking place. When that anguish and that vengeance and that ignorance takes place, we abandon our true nature. We give away our sacred divinity. That is the exact opposite of what I am standing here saying we need to be doing, right? We don't need to be abandoning our sacred divinity. We need to be establishing a relationship with our sacred divinity. Anguish, vengeance, and ignorance keeps us stuck. We can see where the whole world might be stuck right now. But you know what? It's up to us to have patience and spiritual maturity. It's up to us to do the purpose of the universe, like the bees, and to shine our light and go around and pollinate every area that we can with the knowledge of our divinity and our light. And then I'm also going to say, stop being so impatient. Don't say this. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where, well, I did my spiritual practices yesterday. I didn't immediately get what I wanted. I didn't see the results of a full healing. So I'll go hit somebody, or I'll go withdraw. I'll fall back into believing I'm less than. Can anybody relate to that? I mean, be patient. Work those spiritual practices by summoning the sacred from within you. Expectancy, looking and expecting a result immediately, and then if you don't get it, stepping off of your spiritual practice, that's probably not very helpful. I don't recommend that. So I'm going to recommend you being patient. Don't fall back into believing that you're less than. Dr. Ken says those that know better will do better, right? Haven't we witnessed that if you're raising children, or even through this teaching, if you can remember the first time you ever took a New Thought class to where you are now, those that know better does better. Life is easier. Life is better. I mean, I can attest to that. Can anybody else attest to that? Yeah, we got some folks out there attesting to that. And so this is what he says. Those that know better will do better, and those that don't, get this. Those that don't will wake up holding a corpse. I don't want to wake up holding a corpse, folks. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Do you know what Ken meant when he said that? When we're summoning the sacred in our lives and establishing a rapport and having a relationship, we know better, and we do better, and we create our lives better. But if we go on autopilot, and if we sit back, if we choose to remain ignorant or not have an awareness of what's going on, we're going to wake up literally on our deathbed, having lived a life that was not lived. Do you see where I'm going there? Because I want to tell you the greatest gift of all, I'm here to tell you the greatest gift of all is life. It is your life right now. It is my life. That is our greatest gift. You have this precious life within you that you and only you get to decide how you are going to choose to have a relationship with the divine that is within you, the divine spark that created you. That's the most precious gift in the world, is your life. How do you want to take care of that life? How do you want to have it show up for you? How do you want it to operate within your world? You know, I passed that on because this past Thursday, on September 11th, Colleen passed away, Dr. Ken's sister. And he just told that story 2 weeks ago at Big Sky Retreat. You know, things can change on a dime and happen in an instant. Tony's mom broke her kneecap a couple of weeks ago and needed surgery, and she's in rehabilitation. And we went to see his dad right before we left to go to Big Sky Retreat, and he was great. He was doing great. We saw him for his birthday, and he was happy and talking to us and sitting at the table and taking care of things and taking care of himself. It has been 2 weeks, folks. He went into the hospital this week. He fell 2 times and went into the hospital, and Tony went and spent time with him yesterday. Yesterday he was moved to a nursing home and is most likely going to stay there for the rest of his life. The greatest gift of all is our life. What are we going to do with it, and how are we going to choose to live it? You know, I believe that Tony's dad's spirit gave up. He's been married to his wife and had her around for over 60 years, and she's been gone. I don't think he felt he could handle it. His health has declined tremendously. I'm using that as an example, just like with Colleen, Ken's sister. You see, it's up to us on how we choose to safeguard this beautiful gift we have known as our life and our divine spirit within. It's up to us individually. That quote, paraphrased from Ernest Holmes, of what is it that what we do when we find ourselves in hell, is we immediately turn ourselves to heaven. I've got an affirmation that I'd like to share with you that I want us to say out loud. I'm going to say it first, and then I want you to say it with me. I accept now the full support of this great and glorious life in transforming my behaviors and beliefs so I may accept all of the good life has for me. Is everybody on board with that affirmation? Is everybody good with stating that? So we're going to pull it up. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. In a minute, we're going to state that affirmation together. And I certainly don't mind going on while it's working. So where I'm going with all of this, folks, in manifesting a renaissance, which is going on right now. It's going on within us personally, and it's going on within our community, and it's going on universally. Okay? And what that creates is this community, this pocket of people. We've got pockets of people all over the world, and that's what the world needs, are these pockets of people shining their light. That's our job. We're pollinating the world through these little pockets known as this center and pockets known as other centers. And here's the affirmation, so how about everybody say this together? I accept now the full support of this great and glorious life in transforming my behaviors and beliefs so you may accept all of the good life has for me. You know, I feel good when I state that. That's where I'm going with this community and these pockets of people, and that's what the world needs. We're the light that's going around pollinating. Now, how many of you signed those sign-up sheets that were on the back table all summer long in a different department known as those sacred service circles? Now, there's a ton of names on those sheets, so I know it's more than the three of you that are raising your hand. How many of you out there signed, put your name on at least one of those sheets? Because we're getting ready to launch a new thing here. We're getting ready to move into this idea and understanding of creating a renaissance here within our community. And so we have this Kickstart event on September the 28th. It's the last Sunday in September. And it's an event that's happening right after the service. And we're going to have food, and we're going to have a process where we go deep, and then you're going to break out into your circles. And it's a time of renaissance. You know, you get to create that particular area in which you desire to shine your light any way you want. You get to create it any way you want. It's going to be really powerful, and so I'm inviting everybody to come and show up for that. So around this idea of the sacred service circles, Joel Goldsmith says, no spiritual light is given to us for our benefit. It is up to us to become active in a spiritual capacity. It is impossible to hide our light, to run away from it. We must be of service and to be active. We must pollinate. That's our purpose. That's the universe's purpose for us. So I'm going to invite you to say yes and to be contagious with it. I'm going to invite you to summon the sacred into your precious life every chance that you get. So I'm going to ask you finally, what are you looking forward to catching yourself doing this week in summoning the sacred in your life? So let's go into prayer. Going into prayer knowing and realizing and recognizing that this renaissance that is occurring within my very being, within all of our souls, is bursting forth in this time of illumination, which is right now. For I know that we are all called. I know that we are all fueled with this overwhelming passion and desire to burst forth and to give of our gifts and to demonstrate the sacred that is unique within each one of our souls. That there is a creative, artistic expression that's desiring to burst forth in whatever way, shape, and form that is ours to be and ours to give and ours to illuminate. And I know that that time is right now. I know that the time of feeling in anguish is dissolving. I know that when we experience anguish, we immediately move to the truth of who we really are. And I know that that anguish then never, ever has to move to vengeance, because we have immediately remembered the truth of who we are, and vengeance is then no longer necessary. It completely dissolves, not only right here in our own very individual lives, but within the whole entire planet. Vengeance dissolves and goes away, because we are all in the process of knowing and remembering who we are, and then pollinating the world with that light and with that knowing and with that knowledge. And so because we have that knowing and knowledge, we then move away from not knowing. We know that it is here right now. We know that the time is now. As we embrace fully with great passion this Renaissance period in our very own life, and we step joyfully with our head held high and great confidence, knowing that not only do we have something to give and to express, but the world needs it, is calling for it, and it is ours to do and to be. For all of this knowledge and for this creative self-expression, for this illumination that is bursting forth, we are grateful. We are grateful to then move through and from the dark ages into this time of incredible artistic expression, knowing that the world shines brighter because of it. We allow it to be as together we proclaim, and so it is.